discussing is the shortage of staff and the problems that we have because of the shortage of staff, which is, Bob, I had a person call me and said at one prison they had roughly 26 to 30 stabbings in a 6-month period at that one prison.
Mm-hmm.
At another prison, a person called me and said that they had 38 in that 6-month period. Actually, they said 38 in a 5-month, I think, but I'm just going to call it 6 month.
Okay.
And that person said they'd quit counting after 38. So I don't know exactly whether that person knows exactly what they're talking about.
He knows there's more. There's 38. There's more, but
But he quoted 38 is what they said. So when you're talking about two prisons and you're talking about, let's say 26 and 38, what is that, 64 or something like that? You're talking about 64 stabbings in two prisons.
Right.
So what's going on in the rest of the state? I mean, have they had a stabbing at? I know Lawton is a private prison, but we're still running it. I mean,
Well, it's our people.
It's our responsibility, know. And so, have they had stabbings at?
They had a warden, the deputy warden that was stabbed, and 2 officers that were stabbed I think it was last week.
Yeah, and I mean, here's the deal: we've not even included officers being stabbed because you had a officer stabbed when Allen Gamble prison was open the day it's open. I mean, that's
We've had several officers stabbed throughout the prison, but
well, Bob,
it all boils down to staffing. We don't have the staffing. They can't check people when they come in through the front door for drugs or anything else because they don't have anybody out there. They just don't have the people. They have mismanaged this thing so bad that you would just never think that it would have gotten this bad.
Well, and this is what we're trying to get the media. This is what I want our listeners to understand. Let's give an example how we're talking about things being bad. Allen Gamble, you're having your ribbon cutting, your opening day,
mm-hmm.
and an officer gets stabbed when you're doing all of this. That's pretty. You would think things, if you're ever going to have everybody's coming to that prison and you think things would be at its best, well, guess what? You have a stabbing. That sends out a message. That's a bad deal.
But Representative, what about when you go in and you stab a guy and beat the heck out of a guy and you film it? You film it. The inmates film it.
Where'd they send the film to?
To the director and to the family of the guy they did. They put void across his forehead. Now, what does that tell you about staffing?
Well, here's the deal. What's that tell you? One, you're not supposed to have a phone in prison. 2, you're going to film yourself. Who films herself committing a heinous crime and that they're bold enough to film themselves and then send it to the director and to the family with that on there? That pretty much says it all. But Bob, they had
But DOC never said a word about it.
Yeah, you don't hear anything. Of course, that come out on Channel 4. People want to watch that. Pull up Channel 4. You'll see that we're telling the truth. The video is there. In fact, I'm thinking about sending that video to all the legislators and say, hey, you need to be aware of this going on.
But that's how bad it has become. Well, what about when 4 inmates go into a private office,
Case managers, yeah,
and stab a guy at bunch right in front of her
6 times
and stab him, and they're not afraid because they're not getting any retaliation.
Yeah, they don't go after the witness. They just kill the person and go, we don't care. That's pretty bold when you'll tie a person up and rape him and you don't care. You leave him alive. I mean,
my understanding, they didn't even do any rape write-up or rate anything. I'll take pictures or go through the whole thing.
Well, and again,
Bob, in the medical.
When we go back to the prison cover-up on rapes, again, they claim, well, we're number 1 in PREA. Well, what I'm told from their own employees, multiple employees have called me and said that they doctor their paperwork, that they come in, change paperwork, the whole 9 yards. And again, they just don't report. So again, is this a rape? Did this rape get, it's not if, it's absolutely a gang rape. It's multiple people raping a person. I have a video of a person he comes out of the cell. They're threatening to shoot him, I think, with beanbags. And he's saying, don't shoot, don't shoot. Don't put me back in that cell. He's raping me. He's raping me. Don't put him back in the cell. That inmate sent this video to me. And guess what? They put him back in the cell.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, have they done a rape on that individual? So again, yeah, I guess you can be top if you don't report and you cover up your paperwork, according to their employees. Now, that's what's being told to
Right.
me.
No, I've heard the same thing.
And again, Bob, the thing about it is guess what? They got sued not too long back. They just settled a lawsuit where they
$1
$1 million lawsuit
Cover up.
for covering up, doing exactly what we're talking about right there. So it's not that far of a stretch to believe. And then when your director gets on and says, me and you are lying, when we have absolute spend 6 hours, I'd encourage everybody to go back and look at the 6 hours, because guess what? I'm open, transparent. So there's a lot going on there, Bob. Now, one of the things that I think is important is the trust, because this director is saying that he dropped retention, but it doesn't appear that way. So if he is doing that, it'd be important for him to come out and show that. Another thing that came out.
Well, yeah, but retention, dropped the retention from what year? From what year to what year? We just saying in the last 6 months. So it didn't say what year we're talking about there.
Well, I can tell you, Bob, I had a reporter call me up, and this was on the private prison in Lawton. But they had questions on their roster. And they were asking me how many people this meant, how many people that meant. And I looked at that, and they had hired, and I want to say like 10 people. And that looks like, man, you hired 10 people. That's a huge hire. But they lost 20.
Yeah.
So again, I can show, I'm gaining all these people, but I lost 20.
Well, you know what we're representing? We've had people quit over this fiasco
Right.
bonus.
Right.
The way that was handled. I've never seen anything like that. I've never seen or heard of it. And I've been around a while.
You've been around a while.
I have. And I've never seen anything like that where you're evaluating somebody that you don't even know. You don't know what they do. You just evaluate them. Or you evaluate them and say, well, you don't smile very much. I've just never heard anything. And even worse, the director says, hey, we're not going to redo anything else. We're not going to give anybody else a raise. This is it. Don't come and talk to me. We're not making a change.
Right.
He even made mistakes where people didn't get the raise.
Right.
And but they're not going to change it.
Well, it's just showing a pattern. And in that, Bob, one of the things I want to talk about that people likely have forgotten, but you remember they made a big issue out of his uniform that he was wearing.
Yeah.
And he came back and he said, everybody, all these other states are doing this. One reporter actually went and checked, and guess what? Not true. So he come in and he said, I'm going to have an open door policy. No, he's not. He came in and said, I'm going to do a video and you can send in your questions, softball questions. No, he's not. He come in and he said, I'm not going to work with the employees of this, what he calls a union. It's called an association. The Highway Patrol has an association. He wants to mimic the Highway Patrol on having a 16-week training, which I'm not opposed to. I would wait until I got my numbers up to do that. But that's what we're mimicking. But yet, you're not going to allow them to have an association. Guess what troopers have? A very strong.
Well, while you're talking about that, what about where he says, when they ask him about this new, what's that called anyway? That when they did the
civil
bonus.
service.
No.
The Christmas bonus. Yeah.
Yeah. And he says, well, other ones are doing it. The reporter asked him, and he says, well, the other agencies do that. Well, I have never heard of it, and I have asked around. I think you've asked around. We can't find it.
I've not heard
But
of it.
what difference does it make if somebody else is doing it? Does your kids ever come to you and say, hey, I want to do something because everybody else is going to do it?
Oh, absolutely.
You're going to jump off the cliff
you
because
know,
everybody else is doing it?
That's what I always told my kids. If I put cow crap on a plate and everybody's eating it, you going to eat you some? I mean, how stupid do you want to get just because everybody, You know, every criminal I ever know, that's the first thing they said. Somebody else is doing it. Well, you got me. Everybody's doing it. You know,
But he always wants to blame everybody else for his problem.
right. But
He says you and I are the ones that cause he can't hire you. They can't hire.
absolutely, we have so much influence over everybody in the whole state. Calibration's what you're talking
Calibration,
about. Calibration is what you're talking about. And again, here's the deal: whether it be on the uniforms, he says everybody's doing it. Reporter checks, no, not everybody's doing it. Calibration, everybody's doing it. Well, if everybody's doing it, then get some names out there of people who are doing it so we can check it out. Because it seems like the craziest way to. And here's the other deal. If other people did that, Bob, did they start? I mean, this is what's insane. Nobody even knew they changed to calibration.
To November.
I mean, here you're going to do a Christmas bonus, stipend, whatever you want to call it, year stipend, and you're not going to tell anybody how you're evaluating. So nobody knows the process of this. I pulled up your policy. It's not on your policy, I can tell you. I talked to a bunch of people that didn't get mid-term evaluations, and it doesn't look like they did any mid-term evaluations.
Right, they're supposed to. That's in policy.
That's in policy, so they violate policy there. They don't change the policy on the evaluation. So none of the employees received notice that we're changing how we're doing this. And then you go back and look at person after person after person who had exceeds, and now can't even meet standards and aren't even eligible. How does that happen?
How could you have a guy for 20 years, an employee for 20 years, and they're not worthy to get part of that bonus?
Bob, I'm gonna cut out some parts here, just to make sure we don't give up. You know, so I've got a person. He gives his name. He says, "Hello, I work at." I'm gonna say DOC. Yes, I did not receive the bonus. I never had no mid-evaluation, and I've been with DOC 20 years. 20 years.
That's sad.
So you've given them 20 years in this kind of last couple of years environment, and you're not eligible. You're not worthy of getting a raise. That's pretty piss poor, in my opinion. I was denied a bonus and had never been spoken to by my supervisor prior to the denial. I had 3 attaboys within 3 months. Only records officers do not have an inerrant discharge, which I don't know what that means. A bad discharge, I think is what that means. We had just went to a new system where our duties were changing weekly, and myself and 2 other ladies under a supervisor who knew nothing about her job was denied a bonus, while others who worked less superior got theirs. So again, here we go, causing division, causing strife. According to this person, you're getting 3 attaboys, and yet you're not eligible for the raise because Bob, it truly does appear to be a popularity contest. I was employed by DOC in June 22. From June 22 to June 23rd, I was in the back receiving new inmates. This job required me to enter all the inmate data as well as change old systems. Once these inmates were booked in, their files were taken up front and audited, and at that time, I was not someone doing the auditing. In January 2023, a new system went live, and my first duties assigned me by the new supervisor was enter inmates' times, enter all the warrants, detainers, scan all the documents. When I came back from vacation in July, my new supervisor told me I was too slow and would now learn to audit, which is kind of strange if you can't do that, you know. And again, some of the people who are telling you that often don't even have experience themselves. From mid-July up to October 17th, I was considered new to the auditing files. In this small time frame, I advised staff that the senior person now to do the job I was previously doing was not entering inmate time. Nobody cared, including the new supervisor who said it was being done. There were 3 inerrant discharges in this time frame, and one of them being the new supervisor. So basically, new supervisor screwed up is what they're saying. The audits came from the sentencing administration, and I guess what they found. Time had not been entered for months, hence 3 inerrant discharges. Now, if we're talking about bad discharges, Bob, what people need to understand, and I've seen them release people early. I've actually had to go out and pick up people who had that. And what happens if you get out and you're released early and you commit a crime, especially a heinous crime, that's serious, serious stuff. So what they're talking about may not sound that serious as I read it, but again, if you make that kind of mistake and you're in that job, that's a doozy of a mistake. You know what I'm saying? So the supervisor's making mistakes, and the person that's writing this says they have not. And again, I'm just reading what they wrote. At no time was I ever spoken to by my supervisor for a job not being done correctly or that I needed to improve on anything. In fact, I was the only records officer who had not had an inerrant discharge. I should have had 6 months review to tell me what I needed to improve, but there was nothing. How can I correct something if I have not been told I've done anything wrong? I was a new auditor. How can I be compared to people who have been doing this job for years? Apparently, I was not doing anything wrong because I was never spoken to. Because they continued bullying and hostile work environment produced by this supervisor and her favorites, I chose to seek employment elsewhere. My last official day was December 11th, 2003. Therefore, I should have received a bonus. I mean, and it goes on a little bit, but I'm going to stop right there, Bob, because I think that says it all.
Well, we know of 3 people that quit because of the way the bonus was done.
Yes.
We know that, and we don't know how many more have quit because of the sloppy way this bonus was done, or this Christmas, it's not supposed to be a Christmas bonus, but the way it was handled.
Bob, I'm talking to lots of people, and Bob, what I'm about to say may be the serious. So we know I would put staffing level as number 1 problem. I'm going to put this as the number 2 problem. Because not only are they losing people out of this bogus evaluation, calibration, whatever. And again, I hope they will send me, if you are doing that and there's other agencies doing that, please send them. I would like it. If you send me those and I'm wrong, I will come on here and say 100% I was wrong. I'm not too worried about that. Don't think that'll happen. But if I'm wrong, I have no problem admitting, as should they admit when they're wrong, and correct what problems.
Well, I don't think there's going to be any problem there, because you can't have somebody evaluate somebody that didn't know what their job is.
Well, and switch in midstream.
Yeah, but you're evaluating on whether they're friendly, whether they smile, whether, that's...
Well, and you didn't evaluate at 6 months like your policy says. You didn't tell me what's the evaluation I have to meet to get this bonus. And again, you just stepped in and go, we're going to have a new evaluation. I got one person told me they were home and they had to be met up on a highway. They had to drive from their home, highway, meet a person to sign their evaluation. They never went over it, just sign it. And they were like, well, I want to see the evaluation. You can come to the prison and get it. They're not even explaining it. You come to the prison and get it. That's how you're getting evaluated. That is a piss poor example of what we're talking about. But here's the biggest problem is I know person after person calling me saying they're going to resign or they're going to retire when they, I got people saying, hey, I would do 25. I would like to stay around. I'm young. I would like to stay around. I was planning on working 25. I'm not going to work it now. I'm getting out.
See, that's really one of our big problems too. Our long-term people, they had knowledge how things work. They don't have them now. These guys are gone.
Bob,
they've run them off.
That's what I was going to say is the number 2 issue. Your staffing level. And here's the problem, Bob. You got people doing 3 or 4 jobs, and when something goes down, guess who they blame?
Oh, yeah.
They blame that officer. They don't blame themselves.
Well, when there's an incident, guy gets stabbed or a meeting or anything, they'll pick out some officer and blame it on him.
Right.
That it's him or her fault.
Yeah, didn't go
rather
down
than
there.
they don't take any of it all on themselves because they're mismanaged.
Right.
It's always somebody else.
So staffing one, but here's the deal. You remember back we were having when the Great Plains first started having a lot of problems. We're getting a buku's of calls, and we're starting to talk to this person, that person, and we'd have a lieutenant, and I'd say, "Hey, yeah, how long have you been there?" 5 years. And you made lieutenant. How long you been a lieutenant? Oh, I've been a lieutenant a year or so. It's like, you made lieutenant in 4 years? Wow. You know, I mean, that's like, and
15 years.
and here's the deal, Bob. I started asking, man, there was, every one of them were 5, 6 years, you know. It's like unbelievable, because when I was there, you didn't do that. I mean, you had 10 years, you had lots of experience to get those kind of positions. Mm-hmm. And so, I think I've shared one time that we had a guy that had raped one of the inmates' kids, and it was it's a white supremacist, that was in this gang, and this inmate they put on the same yard had raped his daughter, and when they ran into each other, this inmate run to the lieutenant's office, control, man, he gonna kill me. We put him in protective custody. The UBs come and tell me, "Hey, Humphrey, we like you, but we're coming in here and we're going to get that guy." I'm like, keys are right up there. No. But anyways, they say, "Hey, I'm calling my lieutenant going, it's fixing to be a throwdown here. We're fixing to have a full-out riot right here. We're fixing to have a throwdown." Because that's the way my mind worked. You know, I'm brand new there. We're just going to drop down and have a big fight, you know. Lieutenant tells me, "You get that guy ready, and you be ready, and I'm fixing to ring the bell to count. Now, when you count, everybody's got to go back to their cell." He said, "You give it a minute for the yard to clear, and when that yard gets clear, you bring that guy over here to this office." And they already had a car pulled up, so we went to the administration office, and I mean, from the time I talked to him, within 3 minutes, 4 minutes, I mean, I had that guy out. We got his property together later, sent it on after him, but I had the guy out across the yard in a car, problem solved.
Well, let me tell you something. There was a guy that had the holy heck beat out of him. Had stitches in his face.
Right.
Had staples in his head. Beat the holy crap out of him. Okay? And the guy who did it, guess what? They moved him in the cell right across from where this guy is. He almost killed.
Right.
That's
same thing we're talking. Yeah,
that's how it is now, because they don't know what they're doing.
And here's what's funny, Bob. Back then, what I'm talking about, putting that guy on the yard, that was like major. That was major, man. I mean, that was a bad mistake. We didn't see that much being done like that. Now it's like an everyday occurrence.
It's normal.
What we're hearing.
But here's the thing. It's so bad that they jump on this guy and beat the holy heck out of him. In fact, they hit him with a sock, knifed him, and he's having problems with his head. Dizziness, right. Just dizziness, not feeling right. He should go get an MRI. It's what the family
right.
wants him to get an MRI. They will not do that.
Well, Bob, they're shorthanded in medical too. I mean, that's another problem.
They can take him to get an MRI, but they won't do that. They refuse it. It's their job. It's the state's job to keep that guy safe. And when you didn't keep him safe and he got that crap beat out of him, you're obligated to take him to get attention. Okay, so what do? We don't do it. But you get this guy who got it, they filmed it and sent it out to everybody. They immediately sent him to the hospital because they had to, because they had already seen.
Right. High profile.
Yep.
But here's the deal, Bob. We're seeing more. We have less staff. That means more drugs. That means more drug overdoses. Yep. That means more medical. We have more assaults. Guess what? That's more medical. We have more stabbings. Guess what? That's more medical. And we have a shortage in medical. So again, that shortage is spread out all the way around.
No, I'm not blaming any of it on our employees, whether it's a correction officer, a caseworker, or in medical. It's not their fault that they mismanaged it and got it so low.
Well, and that's
they do the
manipulating
pins.
the
But they do these
yes.
pins to make it look like something that it's not.
Bob, they purposely manipulated those. I think it's a savings money mechanism. I don't know why they would do it. It's not that hard to put those pins with the prison and say, hey, that prison needs 60 employees. If they're down to 30%, are down. You know, if they have 30, we're at 50% low. If they have 40, we're at so many percent. You know, that makes it easy to see, but instead they say, well, if y'all hadn't used these 30s, we're taking those away from you. So it looks like you're at full staff at 30. That's a joke. That's a manipulation. That's a smoke and mirrors.
But someone that doesn't know anything at all, some legislature,
Sure.
some senator, or even the governor, goes over there and looks at that, and they bring out, well, here's where we show it. Here, they're only down 3 people.
Right.
Oh, okay. So, not very bad.
Well, that's a big problem in that we're not getting a real. And I was talking about a while ago how he said that you're a third party. I'm not going to deal with you. That he said he's going to have an open door. He didn't. That he says he's going to have a video where you can write in. Didn't. He had the uniforms. Oh no, everybody's doing it. Not true. Calibration. Everybody's got it. Doesn't appear true. You're a liar. This is this. And again, when we look at him, what are you saying and what confidence? Have you really brought numbers up? You said you did. Doesn't appear so. So all of these things, and again, Bob, what we're doing right now is an evaluation. That's what we're doing. We're doing a year's evaluation. And this is the way you do it, whether it's pleasant, whether it's not pleasant. And again, this is evaluation.
Well, let me ask you, I just tell you this. I've asked a number of officers, do you feel safer today
Or 1 year ago.
or 1 year ago? And they all say the same thing. In fact, I just talked to a gentleman today that knows some people at one of the prisons and said they're scared. He said he's scared to go to work. It's so bad that they don't. And the inmates seem to be running to prison.
That's a big thing that I hear is that they don't have the numbers to go control them, and that's a big issue. And so when you do allow inmates to run the prison, it's not the good inmates who are going to end up and have a better place. You're going to have those inmates who are violent rise to the top. They're going to control things through violence. And again, it's a huge problem. And again, Bob, I've been saying 3 years we're going to get to this point.
I think we're about as low as we can. I just think we're
no,
low.
No, I think it can get a lot worse.
He brought it down, so it's just terrible what's happening out there.
But Bob, here's the deal. On top of that, and we haven't mentioned this, but I think it's important to mention it. Come out in the media. This director has been in the media more than any director. They blame that on me and you, but it's not all on me and you. I mean that lawsuit, we didn't have anything to do with that. You know, the stabbings, this video, I didn't send that video to them. So again. These are things that are just going on. He's getting on there because of what he's done and what's going on. And then to get a $90,000 raise and to deny your employees. So how many employees have been denied this bonus of $1,500? And yet you're going to get a $90,000 raise. And again, that's what this is about to me. This is about, hey, here's the issues I have, and you're going to get a $90,000 raise, and then you're going to go out and say some employee didn't smile enough, some employee, you know, that showed up and did 3 people's jobs wasn't good enough. And to me, that just speaks volumes. And when you say I'm not going to work with the people who represent you, we're not going to work with who you have to represent you. That's a big. I mean, that's slap.
Well, they went further than that. One of the guys called the OCP members thugs. This bunch of thugs that represent. This is the employees of DLC. He's calling that. That's how much they respect the employees of DLC.
Well, Bob, I just want to tell you, listeners, we're going to stay on it. We are going to keep after them. We have been after it all year. We have caught a lot. If anybody thinks this makes me more popular in politics, it does not make me. In fact, I've caught a lot of flack because I've went after DLC, DHS, the DAs, and practically anybody that I think is, has any wrongdoing, called it out. We're going to stay on. We're going to stay vigilant. I mean, that's the deal. We've got some bills, Bob. Whistleblower. I'm going to also try to file a bill that I've been working with you on to make it to where any elected official can go into a prison without having to request. so that we don't get the golden tour, that we get an actual view where we can go in and talk to inmates without having
That's
to
a
request
that's a
that.
must. If you really want to have a prison that's run correctly, you gotta have that.
Right.
That you don't have to give you 2 weeks notice that we're going to come over there. Then they paint and they do all this scrubbing and doing everything else, and then they take you on a certain way. I'm told that every warden has a map of where they are supposed to take people, and they have to follow that little
Right.
curve that they do. So you're not really seeing the real prison, but that it's actually a phony tour because you're not seeing what you need
Well,
to see.
that's why I want to pass this bill, say that we can go in without notice and actually get a real view of what's going on. Bob, going to end on a good note.
Okay.
So it looks like that all the state workers may be able to see. So they've got a bill in, I think.
9%, 9.5%.
Yes, and that's being offered by the budget Senate
That's
chairman.
every deal, every department. I mean,
Everyone.
everybody with the state of Oklahoma.
And would get a 9% raise. And again, that's being offered by the Senate budget chairman, which is Roger Thompson. And I'm going to tell you, if Roger introduces that, there's a good chance it'll be pretty stout. If Roger's got it, it'll be pretty stout.
Mm-hmm.
And so it looks promising. Don't want to get in front of our skis. Don't cash the check until you get it on your check. But again, a 9% would be definitely something that would be noticeable on your check.
Well, Representative, I appreciate you coming on today and going back and looking at what's happened in the past. But this cannot continue, and I don't understand how that someone sees what's going on when they look at the television, look at all the things that's going on there. They bring in stuff up about DLC. I didn't do that. They did that. They're on there. The last raise was it wasn't a raise, a bonus. Was the most idiotic. I don't see how anybody in management could come up with something like this.
Well, I want to see if any other state agency. I'm going to start today. In fact, after the first, I'm going to start checking. I've already tried to check. I've not found anybody yet that's using it, but I'm not going to say they're not. We're going to do our due diligence to find out if anybody is. Is it the same way that they're using it? But it just looks like the way that they did it without notifying anybody, without change of policy. People come drive up
It's a
here.
personality. It's a personality deal. One guy doesn't like your personality, you don't get it. If there's enough in there, he gets everybody else to go along with him.
We'll drive up here and sign this, and we don't even give you a copy. You can come find out. And by the way, you didn't make it, and you ain't getting $1,500. That's not the way you do evaluations.
Well, I appreciate you coming on here with me and this year and the things that you go through. I know you're busy and you got all kinds of things to go through. I know you get a lot of calls. I get a lot of calls, and there seems to be no end to it. It just keeps piling up and piling up. But it's very serious now. It's very serious. I mean, in fact, it's so serious. I think they need to call the military in to try to get this place cleaned up, because we have an obligation. The state of Oklahoma has an obligation to the inmates to keep them safe. They have an obligation to the employees that they'll be safe. Right now, they're not meeting it on either one. Our staffing level's so low, they've got to do something. But I appreciate everybody coming on, and we'll be back next week. I thank you very much.
Happy first. Have a happy new year.
Yep.